Hi guys, welcome to Crazy Burger. In this video we're going to be looking at Evercade Activision Collection 1. Let's get started with the video. Okay guys, so we'll get Activision Collection 1 on Evercade. This one definitely seems about 5 years in the making, so I'm pretty sure they had a deal for this many years ago at the start of the Evercade journey, but yeah, it got pulled at the last minute apparently. But eventually, we now have it on Evercade 2025, which is amazing. So this is basically all the Activision, or not all of them, so a selection of the Activision Atari 2600 games, obviously coming on the console collection number 47. I'm pretty sure we will see a couple more of these collections with more games. Ideally it would have been better to see more of these on one collection. There's no reason why we couldn't get maybe 30 games of these on one collection, considering they are old Atari 2600 games, but it is what it is. No doubt it would have been expensive to actually get this cart onto Evercade anyway. We'll get 15 Activision hits. We get Beamrider, Crackpots, Demon Attack, Enduro, Fishing Derby, Freeway, Grand Prix, MegaMania, Pitfall, Private Eye, River Raid, Jinks, Space Shuttle, A Journey into Space, Star Master, and Tennis. Most of the best games from the early 1980s from Activision that made it onto the Atari 2600, which was my first ever console. And I loved it, although obviously it's dated pretty badly. However, don't let that put you off. Some of these games are really excellent stuff. And arguably some of the Activision games that was released on Atari were some of the best games on that system. Anyway, before we sort of carry on, I have to say, Blaze did provide this to me for review purposes, but the thoughts in this video are entirely my own, and I did not send this to them for review prior to uploading to YouTube. So let's have a look in the box. We've got the cart with the sort of Activision logos and sort of rainbow colours, which is pretty cool. Not sure I like the cover design, to be honest. It's probably one of my least favourite covers they've ever made. It's definitely different to all the others, but I'm not sure about it. I'm not sure I like it, to be honest. No stickers or anything in the box, just your usual follow us, free wallpapers kind of thing. And we've got a nice manual written up as normal, and we've got an interesting section there about Activision. They mentioned some of the games like Call of Duty, Crash Bandicoot, Tony Hawk's and Guitar Hero, and many others. I'm pretty sure we will not see any of these games on Evercade. You never know, maybe Crash Bandicoot, maybe we will, who knows, maybe next year we'll get a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater kart, who knows, I doubt it, but you know, you never know. And we got Beamrider, which is a fantastic sort of style game, a grid style game, which is good. A little bit like Tempest, I guess, if you've ever played that. We've got Crackpots, we've got Demon Attack, and lots of different game options there for that one. That one's actually quite good fun. We've got Enduro, which is kind of like a driving racing game. Fishing Derby, we've got a fishing game on Evercade. Happy days. I'm pretty sure it's not the first one, but anyway. We've got Freeway. I think that's a little bit like Frogger, if I recall. We've got Grand Prix, a very basic style game. This one does show its age just a little bit. We got MegaMania, which is a shoot 'em up, I believe. That is pretty cool. We got Pitfall, the first Pitfall game, a classic in a lot of people's eyes anyway. Got Private Eye, which is more in-depth than you might think. A few of these games are actually more in-depth than you would think for a Atari 2600 game. We got River Raid, which I have to say is probably my all-time favourite Atari 2600 game. I've played this one many a time over the years on the original Atari 2600. Played it in emulation many years since that and still enjoy it to this day. Jinks, which is actually a really cool game. I enjoyed that one. We've got a rather strange but in-depth space shuttle or simulation style game. You might want to peruse this manual and try and understand how to play this. I will try, but I will not guarantee that I'll get anywhere with this one. It's an interesting concept. Whether it works as an actual game, who knows. And finally we got Star Master. Oh no, sorry, we've got finally Tennis, which is another tennis game on Evercade. I'm pretty sure we have. It looks very similar to Atari Tennis, which is on one of the Atari console collections. Anyway, let's have a quick bash on the Evercade EXP, and then we'll play all the games in full on the VS, and I'll give you my opinions as we go. So I thought I'd never really see the day that would get these games on Evercade. I think I've probably done a sort of guessing video that we might see them at some point, but that was probably a good few years ago, and it was more hope than anything. But here we have it. We've got it on Evercade. I'm absolutely delighted, but probably have to say at this point, remember, these games will not be for everyone. If you don't have any nostalgia for 2600 games, unlikely you're going to like or want to play some of these games, because they are pretty old. But even then, don't dismiss this. This game is fantastic. I'm obviously biased because it's a favourite of mine and gives me a lot of nostalgia from back in the day. But don't dismiss it. It's absolutely awesome. Okay guys, first up we got Beamrider. This was originally actually written for Intellivision, believe it or not, and it was then ported to various different systems, Atari 2600 being one of them, and it's definitely one of the better games on this collection. I really enjoyed playing through this. It's a sort of grid style game where you're sort of destroying the aliens that are coming down towards you, and they sort of move left to right wherever they feel like sometimes, and you've got standard sort of missiles to sort of destroy them with, but they do not destroy every enemy that you see. You've also got some torpedoes, sort of limited torpedoes you can see at the top right hand corner in purple. You got 3 of them, but you're best keeping them for the Sentinel ship, which once you've destroyed all the aliens, that then appears at the top of the sort of screen. It goes from left to right, and then you can maybe destroy that. If you don't, you just don't get the extra points and you move on to the next sector. I really enjoyed this one. It's very decent and probably arguably one of the best games on this collection. It is really good. Okay, so next up we got Crackpots. This is a very basic game and probably quite typical of a lot of the games that was released back in that sort of time period, which was around about 1983. Now it's very simple. Basically you're sort of pushing plant pots down to sort of destroy the spiders that are climbing up the wall. There's various different spiders, there's different colours, then they go in different directions, they weave all over the place, sometimes they just go straight up. So it's up to you to try and figure out which plant pot to push down at them. If you fail in your permission to, as you can see down the bottom, how many sort of lives you basically have. If you fail, basically the level will rise up until there's obviously no more room left and it's game over. It's okay, but there's no doubt this is a very repetitive game, and it sort of reminded me more like the old LCD style handheld games from Tiger that you used to get, which was great at the time, but very, very limited, and obviously you would get bored extremely quickly, and unfortunately I did. I don't think it's a game I'm going to come back to be honest, but I know there are fans out there of this game, but it's definitely not for me. So next up we got Demon Attack, very typical of a lot of games that were released around about that sort of time period, and it's quite similar to another game on here, on this collection as well. It's not too bad, it's kind of basic I guess. There's not an awful lot of enemies on the screen at the one time. There's a minimal of 3, and once you've destroyed one of them it will get replaced with another enemy until you've wiped out that wave, and then you move on to the next wave and basically keep on going. And then it does obviously get faster, more complicated and a little bit more complex, with the enemies splitting into 2 sometimes. So it's not bad, I didn't hate it, I just didn't think it was amazing, but it's definitely better than Crackpots I would say. But obviously it brings me to sort of say something. Remember, all these games have various different settings and skill levels, so pressing the select button you can obviously decide which level you want to start at. Just refer to the manual what sort of skill settings these actually relate to. But for the best part I'm going to be playing through all of these games with the standard setting level. Occasionally I will switch between different settings, but I will let you know as we're going through the video. Okay, next up we got Enduro, which is clearly a racing game. Now the idea of this, obviously there's different level settings on this again, but this is the bog standard one. And you can use the A button to accelerate or go faster, use the B button to brake. And obviously you don't want to go too slow. The idea is to try and overtake as many cars as you can. As you can see at the bottom, you've actually got a count. I think you start off with 200, and then the more cars you overtake, it just keeps counting down. And you have to overtake all of the cars before it gets to sunrise again for the next day. It is quite tricky. You go through various different sort of settings. You got snow, you got fog, night time, so it is quite tricky. But it's certainly a good challenge. I quite enjoyed it to a point. It is obviously very, very basic, and it reminds me a little bit like the driver game from Atari, but this is far, far better and much more fun to play. And certainly would be a challenge to try and surpass 200 cars in that time limit, because ideally you want to be going at a decent speed and not crash too much. I got close-ish on my first go, but it was still some way short of actually reaching the target. I think I got to about 50 cars still to pass by the time sunrise reached, so a lot of practice is needed from me. Okay, next up we got Fishing Derby, and I'm just going to come out and say it, this game's a lot of crap. It really is absolutely rubbish and pointless for me. And we have a few other different fishing games on sort of Evercade. I think, in fact, Shark's probably the one that springs to mind. I guess it's a little bit different. It's not quite a fishing game, but anyway, it is what it is. Basically, you are trying to capture the fish, avoid the shark from getting it, and the first person to 99 wins, and then happy days, that's game over, and that's basically it. You can play in 2-player as well, which would probably be more fun rather than playing against the computer, because I feel as if the computer is completely cheating like crazy, and that takes the fun away from this. So probably the fun to be had here is in 2-player game, if even there is any fun to be had with this game. It's not good, it's boring, it's just rubbish. Okay, unfortunately we are now following up a rubbish game with an equally rubbish game. This is obviously very reminiscent of Frogger and different style games like that. This is Freeway, and you're basically trying to get the chicken to cross the road as many times as you possibly can within, I think it's about 2 minutes something, on the sort of default difficulty setting. Avoiding the traffic, you get hit with the traffic, you'll get moved back a slot, and you'll just keep getting moved back till you get back to the beginning. Now ideally this is probably best played in a 2-player mode, and that's where the competition would lie and probably the fun would lie. Playing it on your own, obviously it's like a high score chaser, I think, which would be reasonable fun if you're sort of chasing yourself or playing against folks maybe in the Discord group or Facebook groups or whatever in the Evercade community, but on your own it's very, very dull. Multiplayer is probably where this game is at. Other than that, it's not one you're going to come back to. Okay, next up we've got another sort of basic game called Grand Prix, and I think there's 4 different races that you can take part in. The first one that we're doing here should take you about 50 seconds, I guess, and basically you're trying to get there as fast as possible to the finish line. It doesn't matter how many cars you overtake, you're just trying to avoid the other cars, the oil slicks in the road, and in the later levels you're trying to avoid bridges as well. And that is basically it. You're really just doing a time challenge against yourself. So it's another sort of high score, sort of chaser type of thing. It's not really that exciting. It's going to be one of those games that you'll play for a bit and then that'll be you done, unless you're doing some high score challenge for the Evercade community. But apart from that, it is pretty boring and pretty dated, I'm afraid. Next up we got MegaMania, another sort of space shooter. Again, very reminiscent to a lot of the games from that time period. This one's not too bad. I think it was quite interesting that the default difficulty setting had these guided missiles. We can clearly see that if you move your ship, the sort of missile moves with you, which makes it a little bit tricky to actually take out the enemies, and you sometimes inadvertently miss because of that. But if you want to go to the straight missiles, I think it's difficulty setting 3, so really it is a personal preference which one you want to try up. It gives a little bit different style to this game because of that. There's lots of rather cool enemies once you get further into the game, but it's very typical of pretty much every other shooter like that. And I do like the sort of bottom graphical style that's very reminiscent of the game Hero, which I hope we will see in a future Activision Collection at some point. Just a shame it's not on this one. Okay, on to Pitfall. Now, I'm pretty sure practically everyone that knows anything about video games will know about this game. Probably the most famous game that's on this collection. And the idea is basically to get through the jungle, avoid all the traps, and try and pick up all the treasure. You see, I've got a 20-minute time limit. There are lots of screens to get through, and apparently the game does actually loop from left to right. So yes, you can actually go left at the start instead of going right, which does actually make the game slightly easier. Still a challenge. I think if you're going to see the ending of this game, it would probably be best to use the save states, because you'll probably die and be frustrated quite a lot. But if you want this sort of hardcore challenge, give it a buzz and play it old style and see how far you get. This is obviously a very classic game. I'm not a huge fan of this game, I have to admit, but it's certainly a classic. I can see that. And there was lots of sequels to this and various different remakes on the PlayStation further down the line. Maybe we'll see them at some point on Evercade. That would be cool. Anyway, we've got this one and it's very welcome indeed. So next up we got Private Eye. This one has a surprising amount of depth, which is very welcome for these style of games. Reminded me a little bit like Keystone Capers, just looking at the sort of main character. Another game that I've name dropped in here that should be on this collection, but I'm pretty sure it'll be on a future Activision collection. So the idea is to try and solve the crime. You can see all the sort of question marks, try and collect them, and then the first part I think you need to collect the gun, or once you've got the gun it will appear at the top right hand corner of the screen. You need to take that back to the gun shop, and then you carry on through again till you find the money by collecting enough clues, and then you take the money back to the bank, and then once you've done that I think you need to go back to the police station. I can't really remember, but I think that's what you had to do. So it's got a surprising amount of depth. You can see now we have the gun at the top right hand corner of the screen, so take that back to the gun shop. There are actually different levels as well. You can drive in and out of the screen, which is kind of surprising. I guess it adds that little bit of depth that I was talking about, and we do have a time limit as well at the top of the screen. And there are other sort of levels you can start off. Press the select button, you get various different settings. This one's definitely one of the best games on the collection. I love the sort of depth to it. It's quite surprising, I guess, for an Atari 2600 game. Now, as I said, you can also drive in and out of the screen as well, but once you actually find that money, be careful, because there are bandits hiding in that forest that will chuck knives at you, and if they actually hit you, you will lose that money again and you'll have to go back and find it all over again. You'll probably run out of time eventually. This game is actually really good. I'd probably put it in my top 3 on this collection. Okay, on to my favourite 2600 game ever. This is River Raid, and this is one of those games that I played a lot of back in the day. Absolutely loved it. I think we all did. Anyone that played this game absolutely loved playing it. You're basically a fighter jet sort of going down the river of no return, keep on going, destroy some of the helicopters, boats, whichever you can, even the seagulls that are passing over. Try and make sure you keep fuel into your sort of fighter pilot. Don't run out, because the later levels there are few and far between of the sort of fuel top-ups. What an amazing game. I remember playing this game so much I think we broke our sort of Atari joystick at the time, and trying to play this with a broken joystick was practically impossible. But what a fantastic game this is. I still love playing it today, and I've played it quite a lot even over the last number of years, which is kind of still mind-blowing. That shows you how decent this game really is. There's various different routes you can choose as well. Choose wisely, because sometimes you might go down a route there's too many enemies, there's not enough fuel, so Bit of a experimentation there. You can obviously use the save states on Evercade, which will help a little bit. I'm not really sure it has an end, to be honest. I'm not sure, a lot of these games don't necessarily have endings. They do keep on going and looping, but I've never got far enough to know either way. Maybe I will one day on Evercade, which would be absolutely mind-blowing for me, but still an absolute classic. And apparently this was the second best selling game of 1983, right behind Miss Pac-Man. Okay, next up we got a very straightforward sort of flying game. This is Sky Jinks, and you're basically flying left and right between the coloured sort of pylons whilst avoiding the trees and the balloons that get in your way, and trying to basically set as best time as you possibly can without missing too many of the pylons. Now you have to go to the right of the red ones and to the left of the blue ones. This is actually quite a therapeutic game to play, and very easy as well to pick up, and you're basically just going left to right. You can go a little bit faster by pressing down the A button if you want to set an extremely quick time, and there are various different settings. I think there's about 4 different settings. There's more pylons to go through, obviously in the different settings that you choose. I really like this game. I think it's actually surprisingly good fun to play. Okay, so you will have to refer to the manual for this game. I can't urge that enough. Now, I did refer to the manual and I still got stuck, so take that what you will from that. This is Space Shuttle, A Journey into Space. It's basically a kind of a simulation style game where you have control or limited control depending on which setting that you choose. The first part, you're basically sort of flying off into orbit, then you try and link up to a satellite, then you try and dock by pressing different buttons and trying to get the axis, the X, Y and whatever axis to sort of match up to 0, and then various different things. But I have to stress, try your best to follow the instructions in the manual. Blaze have actually put a step-by-step guide in the manual to try and help you understand this game and trying to play it, or say play it with inverted commas. I'm not really sure there's much of a game here, it's just more of an experience simulation game. Will you feel like you're in space? It's now 2025. This was made obviously way back in the 80s. Maybe back then you might have felt a little bit as if you were in space, but now I doubt it very much. And even though I followed the manual, I still didn't have a clue what I was doing, and I got to the point and think, why am I even bothering? It's so boring. But one of you might succeed in landing it back to Earth again. If you do, please let me know. It's one of those games I'll probably have to try and go back and try again, but I ran out of patience really quickly, I'm afraid. But at least well done to Blaze for putting some step-by-step guide in the manual to help, which it didn't. So next up we got Star Master, which kind of reminded me of Solaris, although Solaris did come after this game, so no doubt Solaris was actually inspired by this game. Definitely got those vibes, the same sort of graphical styles, the same idea, but it's not quite as in-depth as that game. So if you press the B button, you'll get the star map there where you're trying to clear all the enemies being the little dots. So if you choose them, you will warp towards them. There are 4 sort of big spaceships there as well. If you choose them, you warp to them, that will maximise your energy. You have to keep an eye on your energy. You start off with 9,999, and every time you sort of fire your energy beam, you will lose 100 off the total, and it will keep on going down. And obviously if you take hits as well, it will go down and you could game over, so keep an eye on that. Make sure you go back to the refueling sort of stations and refuel before you go on to clear more enemies. I have to say, I really enjoyed playing this game. Some of the sections do have maybe 2, 3, 4 enemies, so keep an eye on that. The X will keep on flashing if there are still enemies in the vicinity, but you have to be quick. Don't be taken out by their own missiles as well. But I enjoyed this game. I think it's actually really good. And yeah, it did give me Solaris vibes completely, which is a top game. This isn't quite as good as Solaris, but it's still very good in its own right. And the final game, we have tennis, which is another crap tennis game. Sad to say, we have lots of tennis games on Evercade. Blaze clearly love a tennis game. They clearly love a crap tennis game, and this is another one exactly the same. Although I have to say, I would probably rather play this than Tennis All-Stars or Jimmy Connors Tennis. It's much more fun. At least you can hit the ball, but try and get a point off of the opponent. You really have no chance at all. There is a funny sort of setting where you can play in slow motion, which is really just pure comedy value if you ask me. Other than that, this is crap. It's probably better played as a 2-player game, and that's where the fun will be had, because there's no fun to be had playing this against the sort of computer opponent, because there's no way you're going to get past that computer opponent. Anyway, that's just my opinion. If you manage to get the ball past the computer opponent, please let me know. Okay, my final thoughts on Activision Collection 1 on Evercade. Now, it's been 5 years in the making, no doubt about it. Some you could probably argue 5 years too late. This would have went down more of a storm back then than it does now. I'm pretty sure this will be popular, but for fans only. It's a bit of a mixed bag for me. There's some good games and there's some really poor ones. We've got Beamrider, which I really enjoyed. Crackpots was not the best. Demon Attack was okay. Enduro was alright. Fishing Derby was rubbish. Freeway was so-so. Grand Prix the same, very limited stuff. MegaMania was okay. Pitfall's obviously the classic. Private Eye I really enjoyed. River Raid I absolutely loved playing. Jinks was surprisingly good fun. Space Shuttle probably wasn't even a game. Star Master I really liked. And Tennis that we're watching here in slow motion is just a load of rubbish. So certainly a mixed bag of stuff. Some classics for sure. But this one is definitely only for fans of Activision and 2600 games. If you don't have nostalgia for this, I don't think you're going to get much out of this at all. I think the big news here really is that finally we have Activision on Evercade, and that is fantastic. Should open the doors for a lot of different things down the line, and I'm pretty sure we will get more Activision collections in 2026. Again, guys, thanks very much for watching. Catch you again in the next one. Bye for now.